Do accountants have to talk a lot? It's an interesting question, isn't it? When we think of accountants, we often picture them hunched over spreadsheets, crunching numbers in silence, perhaps only breaking the stillness to mutter some technical jargon or to sigh over a particularly complicated tax form. The stereotype is that they are these quiet, introverted beings who would rather communicate through numbers than words. But is that really the full picture? Let's unpack this a bit. The truth is, while accountants might not be the most chatty people in the room, communication is a critical component of their job. It's not about talking a lot, it's about talking effectively. Accountants must communicate complex financial concepts clearly and concisely, whether they're explaining a balance sheet to a client or discussing audit findings with a colleague. It's not just about the numbers, it's about making those numbers understandable to others, which requires a certain level of verbal skill. Now, you might be wondering, what does effective communication even look like for an accountant? Well, it starts with listening. Good accountants are not just good talkers, they're also excellent listeners. They need to hear what their clients are saying, understand their concerns, and ask the right questions to clarify any uncertainties. It's a two-way street, and if they're only focused on talking, they might miss out on crucial information that could impact their work. Then there's the aspect of explaining financial information. Think about it, you're an accountant, and you have a client who's panicking about their tax situation. They come to you with a million questions, and it's your job to break down the complexities of tax law into bite-sized, digestible pieces. If you can't communicate those concepts in a way that makes sense to them, then you're not doing your job effectively. It's not just about knowing the numbers, it's about ensuring that your clients feel informed and empowered to make decisions based on that information. Now, let's talk about the myth that accountants are poor communicators. Sure, there's a perception out there that accountants are aloof or unapproachable, but that's not necessarily true. Many accountants are fantastic communicators. They just operate in a highly technical field that often requires them to use jargon that can sound like a foreign language to the average person. It's not that they can't communicate, it's that they sometimes forget to translate their knowledge into everyday language. And what about those moments when accountants need to deliver bad news? Nobody likes being the bearer of bad tidings, but accountants often find themselves in that position. Whether it's telling a client that they're being audited, or that their financial situation isn't as rosy as they thought, those conversations can be tough. It takes a certain skill to navigate those discussions with empathy and clarity, ensuring that the client feels supported rather than overwhelmed. So, do accountants have to talk a lot? Not necessarily. There are plenty of tasks, like bookkeeping or preparing financial statements, that can be done in relative silence. These aspects of the job can be quite solitary, and for those who prefer working independently, accounting can be a great fit. But when it comes to collaboration, problem solving, and client relations, communication becomes vital. Speaking of problem solving, let's touch on how talking isn't always the best approach. Sometimes, the best way to tackle a complex issue is to step back and think quietly. When accountants dive deep into analysis, they might find that talking can actually muddle their thought processes. It's in those moments of silence, of deep contemplation, that they can connect the dots and come up with innovative solutions. But when they do need to communicate, it's essential to avoid jargon. Great communication is about making things accessible. If you're an accountant and you're speaking to someone who doesn't have a financial background, using industry-specific terms can create barriers. Instead, the goal should be to explain things in plain language, breaking down concepts into understandable chunks. This not only helps the client, but also fosters a more collaborative atmosphere where everyone feels included in the conversation. Now, let's explore the skills that are essential for accountants when it comes to communication. First and foremost, they need to listen attentively. This is crucial for understanding the needs and concerns of clients and colleagues. Then, they must ask clarifying questions to ensure they're on the same page. When it comes to giving explanations, clarity and conciseness are key. Accountants must be able to convey complex information without overwhelming their audience. Writing skills are equally important, as much of their communication happens through emails and reports. And let's not forget about the importance of reading and understanding financial statements. An accountant who can't decipher these documents will struggle to communicate their findings effectively. Spotting errors in financial data is another critical skill, as it requires a keen eye and the ability to communicate those discrepancies clearly to others. So how do accountants learn to communicate well? For many, it's a skill that needs to be cultivated over time. They might take courses or attend seminars focused on communication techniques. Practice is also vital. The more they engage in conversations, whether in writing or speaking, the better they become. In the end, good communication and speaking skills are invaluable for an accountant. They help in explaining findings and recommendations, building relationships, and even marketing their services. An accountant who can communicate effectively is more likely to establish trust with clients and colleagues, which can lead to career advancement and new opportunities. So, do accountants have to talk a lot? The answer is nuanced. While they might not be the most talkative professionals, they certainly need to communicate effectively when it counts. For anyone considering a career in accounting, it's essential to recognize the importance of honing those communication skills alongside technical knowledge. After all, in the world of accounting, it's not just about the numbers, it's about the conversations that bring those numbers to life.